Real estate agents train in scripts and dialogues. Let's even the playing field. Hi, I'm Jaryd Krause.
And I'm Sam Powell, and we are the hosts of the Property Pals Australia podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing how you need to understand the three sides of a deal in property, how showing your budget card is not the end of the world, and where the importance lies with knowing where value roughly sits before engaging through your negotiations. Why it's important to call competing agents to get their opinion on the value as well, and how to ask, and with examples, further probing questions like why they're selling, have they bought elsewhere, numbers of parties involved, etc.
Yeah, there's so many good things in what agents do and say in terms of their training on scripts and selling, and they're very crafty, and we need to be conscious of those. We also talk about throwing out some bait, what that looks like, how to sit and strengthen your confidence in a deal before going into negotiations. We also talk about the strength of conditional and unconditional offers, which is important to know. And then we go into some tools that you can use on how to better negotiate. Example one, building a pest can help you save a fair bit of money on a deal just as a negotiation tool. And then when you're buying a property, there's a lot of emotions involved, and especially when you're negotiating. And we talk about some things that you can do to be unemotionally attached to the property that you're negotiating on. This is such a valuable podcast episode. There's so many golden nuggets in this. I'm sure you're going to get so much from it. But this podcast is not the only way that we can help you for free, right, Sam?
Yes.
We have a tool. It's a mini course on how to maximize your borrowing capacity. To get that, head to propertypals.au/resources and get this tool so you can buy a superior asset and achieve a better ROI from that asset you do purchase because you maximize your borrowing capacity. Now, let's dive into the show. Welcome to Property Pals, the podcast where we share everything around how to build a property portfolio, from researching areas, financing, structuring, buying, selling, and reinvesting to live a life of financial independence. As a disclaimer, any information shared by myself, Jaryd, Sam, and the Property Pals team is strictly general and should not be taken as constituting professional advice. You should consider seeking independent legal, financial, and taxation advice from a qualified professional. Let's talk about negotiations. Well, actually, you want to talk about your coffee addiction first.
We're live. I've been bouncing on my ball.
Yeah. New ball.
Yeah, throw it out there. Are you a tea person or a coffee person?
Yes. Yeah, let us know. How do you start your day, coffee or tea? It's so important. No, we're out in the surf this morning. We like to get a little surfing before these pods. It was quite fresh, and Sam was thinking about his warm tea when he came in for a surf, but
the preference is towards a coffee, but Jaryd doesn't drink coffee or have like an espresso machine at the studio. So here we are, and we're drinking a tea, and beggars can't be choosers. But also, there are, I guess, if you have too many coffees in a day, there's reported health complications, I guess. Would you say
what? So I don't get it, right? People are going to listen to this and be like, dude, you are so out of the loop. And I am. I don't get the whole coffee thing. Like, tell me why it's so big for you.
Oh, geez. Good question. I won't ramble too much on this one, but I just like the flavour, and it's like a little meal to start the day, and just the flavours. It's kind of like if you're into wine, you can smell the aromas. It's a whole sensory experience. And also you get that little bit of a buzz from it, the caffeine. But apparently I was reading that the caffeine, it doesn't actually make you, I guess, they say that all it does is block your tired receptors. So your body's still tired inside, but it's just not, that message isn't going through to your brain.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, so people just keep drinking coffees. It's actually like there's too much acid in your body. And my wife, she's
studying naturopathy.
Studying
naturopathy. How do you say it?
Naturopathy?
Yeah, that's it.
That's a mouthful, isn't it? But yeah, she was saying that too many coffees in a day is not a good thing. So I limit myself now to 2 shots or one shot, maybe 2.
Limits. It's like, all right, I'm addicted.
Yeah, well, people are addicted to everything.
So how much coffee do you need to be a good negotiator?
Good question. Good transition. None.
None. Good.
None.
What do you need to be a good negotiator? Well, okay, so let's frame this up. We've gone through basically our first 10 pods, guys. If you haven't listened to them, they're basically the foundation of this. So go through, listen to those on how to start even investing in property, getting your first property, getting max borrowing capacity, getting all the way through to close to a contract of sale, right?
Yeah.
Like you found the deal. Now you're like, all right, I want to get a good contract of sale with good terms.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do it?
Yeah, well, that's the secret sauce. There's multiple different ways to go about it, but obviously we're just going to touch on a few key points so people can take this away and implement it themselves. And as always, as we say, if you have any questions, just reach out, and I'm more than happy to help. Obviously, as we all can grow as a community.
Yeah, hello@propertypals.au. I guess I want to know what's the reasoning for asking for a lower price. So
yes, let's dump on that. Everyone jumps in going, just throw a low ball at it.
Yeah, no, exactly. So should I share some negotiation things that I
give
love?
it to me. Give it to me. Yeah.
So I help people buy businesses, and a lot of the businesses that are listed for sale, I find on larger brokerages, they have a margin of like 10 to 20% where they know what the market value of that business is or that property is, and they will list it 10 to 20% more because they want to try and push the boundaries and try and make more money for their clients and for themselves, of course. And so what I just know as a default is that you've got that margin, especially with some of the brokers that I know, right, that are selling these deals. And then it comes to, all right, I know what the market value is because I've looked at a lot of the businesses in that market. Like I know the market, which is going to be good for negotiations in property. I know we'll touch on that.
Yeah, you're educated.
Yeah, you're educated. And then also you've got the risks involved with the property, the business, and that can be a cause agent for stacking up. And what I like to do is stack things up and like, this is why I'm coming at a decreased price. But I also tell people not to lowball and not to play games. And that's a really important thing because if you're going to play games, you just lose the respect of the selling agent and the seller. You're like, I don't want to play. They don't want to play games. They just want to sell their property. And typically, I'll come back. This was so much for me to dive into here, but is that a similar thing in property investing where you're like, all right, you need to know the market and then you need to know the risk of the property to be able to submit a lower price than what they're asking for? What else? What else? Where do you go?
Yeah, well, you start off obviously. You do your research when you touch on like valuing properties and how to do your comparable evidence to justify that. So your business, I guess, negotiation is very similar to a commercial property because you're really relying on that income to justify that end value, so that capitalisation out.
Yeah.
So businesses run on multiples, and commercial property runs on capitalisation rates. Residential.
What are capitalisation rates?
So it's like a percentage of where you divide the net income by the value of the property, and that gives you a rate. And what the way that you value commercial properties is you get their income, and then you look at other comparable properties that have been selling because they're also different sizes. It's very difficult to go
different nuances.
Well, that's and also different businesses inside them. So you understand, well, with your comparable evidence, what did those properties sell on? What capitalisation rate did they sell on? So people are buying that income.
Yeah. So you are looking at the data of the market of what's sold.
Yeah.
For those, which I'm sure is same in resi.
Residential is more because it's more emotionally driven, which makes it a bit more difficult for people to it's simpler to get your head around because people live in property and they most of them know someone or have bought a property, so they have that confidence around it. But there's a lot more complexities in understanding I guess, market conditions, which those who aren't in the market every day is difficult for. So often, like at the moment, is a bit of an education process for people. So they might miss out on one or two properties at the start, but then they're starting to realise what market we're dealing with. But we want to bring it back to, say, negotiations.
Yeah, bring it back to the start.
I'd say the key thing, first thing to do, what I do, is understand where your comparables are and how to justify roughly where that property would sit based on your research. Because what you're going to be doing with that is you'll have that evidence. You'll also be, another key point is to call the competing agents, not the agent that you want to buy that property off, but call the other ones that are around it that have sold similar properties or have similar ones under offer. Ask them, what it's sold for, and then you ask them, "Oh, I'm actually looking at this 123 Fake Street. What's your opinion on it?" Because they're the local expert, and if they are good at what they do, they have a rough indication. You just got to be careful, and this is where just like it's that natural flow where they have a vested interest in you not buying that property because they might have a similar property coming up, so they might shit can it, or they might overinflate it. So getting multiple people's opinion, agent's opinion, and then also comparing your actual sold evidence to justify roughly where that value sits is step one.
It's really good to take the opinion of others with a grain of salt, especially these other brokers, because if you put yourselves in the shoe of a broker that just is looking at just the money,
so real estate agents for property, brokers for business.
Yeah, that's what they want, is they want more money. And so if they get if they see this deal and say, and give you an inflated valuation of what they think it'll sell for in that market, they could do that because they might have another deal that they want to list and they want to try and get yours sold, or they want to try and have you buy it even through another agent for a higher price, which can bring up the price of the other deal that they haven't yet listed, so they can make more money, right?
Yep.
So that's a sketchy thing.
Fraught with danger, this industry, but that's obviously why we're doing the pod, right? But the reason why I say all that is that's key, because I do my negotiations a little bit differently. I'm obviously pretty relaxed, so I go in with a relaxed,
confident
persona.
Different to somebody that's emotional.
Yeah, that's true. That is the difficult part, is taking the emotion out of it. And obviously, when you do it every day, it's different.
Let's come back to the emotional aspect, because that's huge, I feel.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take your little sip there. Go and take your sip.
Oh, it smells so good.
It ain't no coffee; it's just tea. So, so that's the first step, is taking other agents' opinion with a grain of salt, and then doing your own market research.
Yep.
Once you've done your market research on comparables that have sold, then where do you go to from there?
That's when you start your negotiations.
Okay.
So you initially at this stage, you've before you do go and do all that research, you want to make sure the property's on market. So just FYI, sometimes they get sold really quickly, but the first thing, touch points, hey, I'm interested. You're still available. Yes, you get some basic details. Then you go away, do your research, you come back. And then I like to just have that discussion where I generally say, you need to understand the three sides of the negotiation, and that is the seller, their objectives.
This is important, guys. Take notes.
Three
sides: seller, agent,
and yours.
So
in doing that, understand where the agent comes from, and basically the agent, they're working for the seller, so they want to get the best price for the seller. That is their one job. The seller might have inflated expectations of where that sits. So the agent is not only competing with buyers, but also with the seller's unrealistic expectations. They want to get a sale done. It's in their best interest. If you put everything else aside, yes, they're working with somebody else, but if they don't get this property sold, they do all this work for nothing. And that's many, many hours wasted. So understanding where they're coming from, but also understanding where the seller's coming from. So how do you do that? It's good to understand by asking probing questions into that situation, such as why they're selling, what are the number of parties that are involved in the sale. Sometimes it might be, a deceased estate, which is also painful. So you've got lawyers involved, and you've got multiple kids that are looking at and their opinions too. So it can be difficult, but also understanding where that sits gives you a time frame where you might not have to rush with your deals. Some deals, it's all speed and that can get you through really quickly and get a really good price.
Mm-hmm.
But others, you just got to sit on your hands sometimes.
So one absolutely critical thing is understanding the intention of sale for the seller.
Correct.
Same with the business is. I typically tell my clients to ask the seller what's more important to them, like why are they selling. Typically, it's the same old story. I'm sure it is in property. It's like, we just want to take money off the table, want to relocate, invest somewhere else, whatever it is, same old thing. So but if you just if you hold space and are open for the agent and really good at just building relationships, which is probably the most important thing in negotiations, I think, is holding space for the seller to open up to you or the agent to open up to you and overshare. And I have a bit of a strategy on how to allow brokers and sellers to overshare when you're having a conversation.
Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, all right. So basically it's all relationships and psychology, and you have to do this. I'm going to pin this and frame this, and I want you guys to understand that this should be done in a totally moral and ethical way, not to try and game or manipulate somebody. It should be just a genuine thing. And if you actually care about humans, you can do this naturally, which is good. That's the only way that you should do this. But it's building a relationship with the person. The more they trust you, the more they're going to open up, right? Yeah. And how do you build trust? Typically, it's time spent with somebody, but you can start to build trust in a shorter time frame by speaking to them about things that are related to their life and your life, and connect, right? Once you make that connection, and once you have one sticking point in common, then you work on that, and then you open up and just peel the layers back like an onion till you get to like a really strong connection. And you can do that with a broker, you can do that with a seller, and it's basically building a relationship and understanding that you care about them. You care about them, but you're also going to have good boundaries and be firm that you're going to pay what you feel the property is worth, and you're not going to dick them around in a sense that you're not going to be like, I'm going to lowball you, and then I want you to come back with another counter offer, and then we'll meet in the middle. Like what I typically tell people is like, I'm really good at this. I'm going to do my DD. And I'm going to make one offer. And if you think it's good, great. If you don't think it's good, then sell it to somebody else.
Cool. Yeah.
That's my opinion. And like that is because I can be unattached, right? A lot of people that are buying their first property are super nervous. They don't know what's going on. It's their first time. I.e., guys, reach out to us for help. We do coaching here. We hold your hand.
I got a question. How often do you get one and done?
What do you mean one and done?
Like one offer, deal done. Or do you have to go back and put a little bit more meat on the table for them? Or what's the sort of...
I would say about 70% of the time we get one and done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. It's decent. And then 30% you've got the seller that's just like, nah, I think. And it depends on the market as well. I have a reputation in my space. And if people are working with me, the brokers know that, like, all right,
he's educated.
This guy's got his eyeballs on the market everywhere. He knows what it's worth. It's going to sell for that price. So I have a bit of an upper advantage there. But so that's not going to be relevant for somebody that's brand new to the space, unless you know the market so well and you can present data and information like, all right, I don't understand why you would want to list it and try and get the price for it like this. Say it's a $500,000 asset worth, and they're listing it for $600, and you just see the comparables all around the 500 range to 510, 480, all that sort of stuff. If you went and presented data and be like, look, as a broker, you may be doing a bit of a disservice to your and it depends on how good your relationship is and wording you're going to use, but Like if you are telling you're telling a seller that you can achieve 600, I feel like that's going to be a bit of a kick in the pants for them when the market, it's actually only going to sell at what the market is going to purchase it for, and the market, based on all of my data and these comparables, is saying that's worth 500. I think that's a good deal. I think it's a good price. It's what it's worth. I believe it's what other people would be willing to pay. I have finance approved. If you want to go down this route, let's do it. If not, then try and keep it on the market for another 3 months, 6 months, and then really tarnish your relationship with the seller, and then force the price down to even lower than 500, and maybe sell it for 470 because you've overcooked this.
Yeah, you've lost a good deal. Yeah. Well, I guess the biggest difference in buying businesses and buying property is that there's less competition in that front, because that's why we'll touch on that with the property side.
Yeah, that's true. So many people in property.
Well, you get to a point where you could have all the analysis in the world and it could point you to a $500,000 figure.
Yeah.
But if there's another person willing to pay $520, then if you want that property, you need to understand that. And that's sort of that skill set where agents train. And like, this is a big thing that I don't know many people understand, is that like real estate agents train in scripts and dialogues. They have sales trainers come in. They do sales training nearly every week.
Millions of dollars of training.
So you're going up against someone who, like all credit to the real estate agent, the really good ones, the great ones. They are worth their weight in gold. Like they are good. And you're going up against someone, even if they're an average one, they're well more equipped to deal with the negotiation process than what you are, because they do it every day. They've heard your responses multiple times over. They know how to manipulate and bend you into thinking certain things through answers such as, there's an offer coming in, put your best foot forward.
And that's where shady things come in.
They live in the grey.
They live in the grey. Yeah, that's a really good.
And there could be an offer coming in, but the offer might be coming in at 470, which is nowhere near that 500 you're putting in. But just saying that creates that urgency. And when people are emotional about something, it just gives that one little statement could make someone go, we've missed out on a few properties. You know what? Let's put it at 530. I don't want to miss this one.
Yeah.
And then the last offer might have been at 470. You just overpaid by 50 grand.
Yep. And that's an easy thing to do when you're emotional about it. So one of the biggest things in negotiations is being unattached.
Yeah.
And knowing that, I guess this comes to mindset. And this is another whole podcast that we can talk on. We
got years of talking absolute property and business potties, so we'll get to it.
I love mindset. Mindset is my bread and butter, and is like, if I could just sit in front of a camera and a microphone and speak about mindset all day, I'm a happy man. Because it sets you up for success, right? Having a good mindset. And where people fail in this negotiations thing is thinking that, I missed out on 2 deals or maybe 3 deals. I need to get in the market ASAP, and they're very short-sighted. People that win and succeed understand and put time on their side, and they give themselves a good time frame and understand, like, I'm going to get in the market eventually at the right price, and I know it's going to happen, and just trust in that it's going to happen versus fret and make a decision based on fear. And when you make fear-based decisions, shit hits the fan typically.
Doesn't go well.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack in all that mindset space. So, I mean, if you are interested, let us know. But
we'll go down that route once we hear feedback from you guys. All right. So we're
understand 3 sides of the transaction, so you understand where they're sitting.
Yeah. So seller, agent, and the buyer. Yep. Yeah. Those 3.
Because this is the paradigm that's always going to happen. The buyer is going to think it's worth less than what. Let's give round figures. Buyer thinks it's worth 950. Owner thinks it's worth 1.1. Agent thinks it's worth 1,050,000. We're all over the place. We need to find that middle ground. How do we get to that middle ground? Well, you don't really know with property, because the definition of market value is willing buyer, willing seller, local agent, arm length transaction. And it's on the open market, so you're testing it. So there could be buyers coming in that are higher than that. And agents are usually pretty good. If you come in at I want to put a $950,000 offer on, they'll pretty much just say, look, we've already got an offer at $970 with the same terms. So you're wasting your time. That's where it is at the moment. And then they're going to take that offer. If you go in at $975, then they're going to shop that around. So you understand how the whole process works. It's not just there's an offer at $970, put an offer in, and then it's yours. If you were selling a property, you'd be pissed if the agent did that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
There's a lot more to it. And obviously, I'll have to get Scott on the podcast. He's
definitely
highly experienced in negotiations and 28 years experience. Like,
is that all?
I think he's got over 3,000 transactions.
Whoa!
Yeah. He's actually he's one of Australia's best negotiators. So he's worth his weight to have on your side as well. Just people that are doing it every day, like Scott, you don't understand it until you.
He must love it.
Oh, he loves it. He's like a dog at a bone. I love it. I like analysing markets and property. I love negotiation too, but I just don't have 28 years of experience. I'm only 34. I start negotiating when I'm like 6 years old. I love it.
So, with that, I guess it really to become not emotional and unattached to the deal. You need to come into the deal knowing the market and knowing the value of it, right?
Yeah, roughly. But an agent, you can say, look, the property down the street sold for $1.2 million, therefore I'm only paying 1.2. It just comes back to, and this is like the emotional side of the market, is where are the other buyers at? Because who cares? That property sold last week. It's not available anymore. This one is. And if you want to buy it, I've got another buyer at 1.25 million. That's what I'm saying. 1.3 buys it. Yeah. But understanding how that process works, asking those further probing questions to give you that sort of time frame base and where value sits is really important. There's we train in obviously Scott's a mentor of mine, and we train in our own dialogue for the buyer side because we have to. Because
tell us some dialogue. I want to start it off with sharing a bit of dialogue that I would use when you say this is so typical property market saying 1.3 buys it or 520k buys it. One thing that I have noticed is really good is testing to see where the broker and the seller are at in terms of price before even making an offer.
Absolutely.
And one thing that we'll do is say they're asking $550 for a deal and we know it's worth $500. What I would say is look, I've done some DD. I believe it's not worth what you're asking for, so I'm probably not going to submit an offer because I don't think it's going to be what you actually want to hear from me or what you want to get from me. And so you're drawing them in to a stage where typically they're going to be like, oh, well, I need to know where you're sitting, right? And then you seed where you're sitting and you say, look, we'd roughly be around the 500k. If we can get to that, that's what we believe it's worth. So we don't want to,
waste your time.
We don't want to play games. Yeah. And what you are doing is then you're just like, we don't want to waste everybody's time. We don't play games. I prefer you just, if you think you can get 550, cool. Yeah. Go and get 550. Your seller's going to be stoked and they're not going to have resentment towards us for buying it at a lower price. So go away and do that. And all the best. And you're basically, what I call this in our industry is you're buying respect. You're buying a lot of respect from the broker and saying, I'm not gonna put an offer in here, guys, because it's not gonna be what you like. I don't want to stuff you guys around. In their eyes, mad respect. Also, what they're thinking, but they might not be conscious that they're thinking, is that this guy knows what he's talking about. This guy knows what he's talking about, and he's confident because he knows what it's worth, and he's saying, go get higher price for it if you want. If you think you want to come to the market price, then come back to me, and we'll give you a deal, no nonsense. That's how I look at it anyway. So
I call that throwing out a bit of bait.
But
you're doing a lot more in depth, which is it's good because the way I go about it is that's why I say understand where the value sits roughly, because you can throw. I don't call them low balls because they're close to where value sits.
Yeah.
But it's enough to engage them in that I guess fight. And I mean, Scott calls it a 95 to 97% rule.
What's that mean?
So it's where you see value, just times that by 95%. So it brings it back 5%. So you're in that ballpark. So if you're looking at a $500,000 purchase, and then you take off that sort of 5%,
10 grand, say.
Yeah, 10 grand. You're like, okay, cool. You're close. I'd probably pull back to like sort of 470.
Okay.
Because they're like, oh, you're in that the ballpark, and then hearing that agent's response, and like they'd be like, oh, if they're asking 600 as an example, that's great what you do, because no doubt they'd come back, and if they're coming back to you saying, oh, well, Jaryd, just where are you at? Where's your offer at? You know they don't have an offer on the table, or you're starting to gauge it.
Correct. That's a really good thing to point out. So that's one thing. If they're asking you where you're at, they don't have a price.
Or they don't have they're not at the price that they're even expecting. So,
okay.
And that's where it follows up to, you throw a little bit of bait out there. And look, as you said, we're at 500, we're at 470. I just don't think that we're just too far apart from if you're wanting $600,000.
Would you then say, look, mate, I don't even want to tell you where I'm at? Like, it's a bit of a reverse psychology, I know, but I would say, look, if you're thinking still 550 and and you want to see where I'm at, I just don't think it's worth us talking about. You just try and go get something for 550, because we're down by 50 grand on that, and that's not what you want to hear. So like, come back to us if you think we can get around that price, and if you want to play games to try and get us up to closer to the 550, I would rather not just do this game. I'd rather just I know what it's worth, and I think you know what it's worth, and hopefully you can get a steal and get a sick deal for your seller. Like, that's what we want for you. You're going to make more money, they're going to make more money, you both win, great. But in this aspect, I'm not going to win, because I'd be paying over market value. And for a deal to happen, every single person, the seller, the broker, and the buyer needs to win, and I would not be winning in this.
Yeah, so I would. You got to look at with property the days on market.
Yeah.
So if they've just released it, it's a fresh listing. They haven't had enough feedback. So just asking those questions. Like, if you want to buy it on the first day that it's been released because you've been waiting for that property, the seller's not going to sell it to you within one day unless it's a ridiculous offer that they just want to grab. So you're probably paying over market value.
What are some other interesting things that brokers will do and say to
agents?
Agents.
People get mixed up. Like,
yeah.
Broker.
Broker. So
in the business world, the brokers.
Business brokers. Instead of brokers, it's real estate agents, not real estate brokers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so agents, what are some of the tricky little things that they can do to I would say,
they always
manipulate, because I feel like a lot, if they're training in this and doing it unethically, that's manipulation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's,
if it's unethical.
That's probably one of the biggest reasons why I never got into that selling space, and also, why Scott is my mentor as well. He got out of that space because there's just so much toxicity and lying to not only sellers but buyers, but lying to everybody around you. So it's a shark tank.
Can't be good for your karma.
I mean, there are good agents who they just want to get the best price and they sleep well at night because they're working for the seller. But then they're also in that local community, so they're generally not going to absolutely fleece people. But here's the other thing about property is that people don't buy it and sell it within a 12-month time frame or a 2-year. Usually it's a 10-year plus hold. So
hence the emotions.
Yeah, but if you overpay now through a good agent selling you on the dream, you're not going to really know in where it sits, because you're not going to put it back on the market and test that market, because it's going to cost you however much, 50 grand in stamp duty fees on $1 million purchase. Then you're going to have to sell it. It's going to cost you 30 grand in real estate agent fees to sell it. So that's silly. But
Yeah. So what are some of the other things that they would
Always
That would
expect competition. So there's always like, we've got a couple of buyers that are interested in it. We've got offers coming in, or we had 40 parties through the first open home. It's looking really good. There's always someone in the back end. There's always that competition. That's what they get trained to do, is always create competition, because that gives that emotional driver to
generate fear. Is basically what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's why in order to offset that with clients, I like to run, yes, we're more focused on this property, but let's look at another one. And then start comparing. And that is also educating them on where the value sits. Because if you're looking at, say, 2 or 3 other properties, they're starting to see where that value sits. And often different minds, different emotions come through different personalities. So some people come in gun-ho, yep, I want it, just give it to me. And you're like, whoa. So you got to pull them back. You're like, it's not worth $1.4 million, mate. Like, let's at least test it, feel it out. Whereas other people are like, oh, I'm not paying that. And then you have to educate them to say, hey, I know you want this unicorn deal, but over the past 6 months, all these properties that you think you would be suited towards, guess what? They've all sold for way over what you're anticipating to buy this one for. So why would you think anything different? So it's you're a bit of a psychologist in a way.
Yeah, it fully is. And I really like the thing for a buyer having multiple deals, multiple properties they're looking at the same time is such a good route and thing to people. I forget the actual word that I'm trying to look for. It's such a good vehicle for people to have non-attachment to one specific deal, because if they are only looking at one property and they're riding on that, then they're more emotional about it versus, if I don't get it for the price I want, then let's just see what these other ones do.
A key I'd say too is don't mention the address of the other properties, because the sales agent, if they're good, they know the area, they will go, oh, I know that property, poo-poo this, that's not worth that. Oh, and then they're asking 1.2, that means your budget sits around 1.2. But this property is only asking 1.1. We'll get into budget maybe next, while we're on it.
Let's do it now.
So a lot of people have fear around telling real estate agents what their budget is for a property.
Should they have fear around that?
No.
Why not?
Because budget doesn't mean value. And you can come
that is a quote.
Yeah, write that one down.
Yeah. No, but it is.
But yeah, so you can sit there and go, a lot of agents go, well, what are you looking for? And if you're in a market and you've missed out on a couple of times, you've spoken to a number of agents, a lot of them do ask, well, what's their budget? What's your budget? And you can just tell them what your budget is. Just be honest with them, because then if they bring you properties and they're not within your budget, you say, it's not within my budget.
Yeah.
They might bring you a property that's below your budget, and a lot of people don't like giving their budget. How many times can you say budget?
Budget.
They don't like giving their budget because they don't want the agent knowing, oh, I've got $1.2 million to spend, because they all work in a team if they're in the same office, or they write these things down in their notes so they know what you've got. But you just turn around and say, look, I know I've got $1.2 million to spend. I don't see $1.2 million in value in that property. So why would you expect me to pay that when everything else, based on comparables and everything else, is 1.1?
Yeah.
And then you have that discussion and you go, look, I want to buy the property, but it's got to be at market value. So, if you think it's worth 1.2, then go out and get it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and find another property that's actually better, that is worth around 1.2, because I can't afford that, but I do like this one. It's fantastic, and I know I could probably put $100,000 into it, and it would be worth 1.3. So it's actually better for me to buy this, but I can't stack it up on that.
Yeah. And you can give the agents a ballpark figure. You can say you're around 1.2. You can do a little bit more, you can do a little bit less, but that's where you're looking at. That's your sweet spot. What are the other things that agents will be asking for through negotiations and saying?
Well, they want
common things.
They want to understand why you like the property too.
They want to understand why you like it.
Yeah. So you go through it, and then they'll listen to what you say. So when you're doing the open inspections,
is that because they want to as a salesperson? Is that because they want knowing this? Is that because they want to extract data and then put that in front of them every time? A lot of the times that they speak is like, well, it's got this and this and this, and they're basically value stacking exactly what you want in the property and selling it to you. Is that their motivation?
So Jaryd, you know how you've been looking for 6 months for a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, north facing to the water with a pool?
I found it.
Yeah. How often do the properties like this come up? Like, have you seen them? Have you missed out on any? Oh yeah, true. And then they basically go through, well, this is something that ticks all your boxes, yeah? Like, it's got a 4-bedroom, it's got that 3-bathroom, it's got
they've got pool. Proper good sales training.
Yeah. And then it's like, and north facing, and that scarcity, so it will grow in value. This area is booming, it's gentrifying, you've got all these lovely cafes. This is where you want to be, in order for you to be, this can be yours. If you just, this is where we're at. Our seller's at $1.2 million. We can get this deal done today if you come to 1.2.
And it's close to your family, because I know that you want to be really close to your family, right? Like, this is like literally 4 streets away from your family, all those things. Yeah. So would that be an important thing for a buyer to not give too much data away?
Yeah, I mean, you go in, look at the property, but don't go telling the agent how much you like the carpet or the carport or the pool or the north or anything like that. Like, you can have specifics, which is like we'd say probably like 5 to 6 key points. Like, when you are doing your search, it's good to get in contact with all the agents anyway to try and find those pre and off market deals. But you're giving them a shopping list, which is I want 4 bedrooms, waterfront, north or northeast facing, minimum 500 square meters of land. So,
and here's my budget.
Yeah, budget $1.2 million.
And it's nothing like, oh yeah, your mum and dad live close and they can just pop around whenever, and you're not giving them too much of that side. That's really good to know. So guys, be careful of that. What else should people be careful of with agents and negotiations?
Well, terms and conditions, probably something to, everyone thinks it stacks on price, but understanding where the terms and conditions lie is quite important. So you don't just negotiate on price, you negotiate on your terms. So some people, often the deals that have the least amount of conditions, so basically no building pests, no finance, here's cash, I can give you $1.2 million cash for this deal. That is very attractive because as a seller,
you can settle
faster, but also you don't have any risk in, all right, we've listed the property for 4 weeks. There is that psyche around properties that are in the market too long, they become stale. People drive past them or they see it and they go, oh, there's something wrong with that property, it's been there for too long. But what it could be is that it's gone under contract, subject to finance or building a pest, it's failed on finance or even it might be a mild building a pest, or the buyer's got buyer's remorse and freaked out last minute and gone, oh my God. So what happens is they put the property back on the market. People don't understand that what's going on in the back end. So then they're just assuming that it's a stale deal, a stale property. So what sellers often like and what agents like is just cash. Because they know it's going to be a deal done, move on to the next thing, no dramas. So you can negotiate around that. Queensland's big on building and pest and finance. Sydney buyers are often cash. That's just how they deal. If you want to do a building and
just
pest,
cash, they just got money. They just
it's not typically just cash. Like, here's $1.2 million. It's just there's no restriction. So it's like if they commit to a contract to buy them for $1.2 million, they have to go through with it.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but they've got the finance pre-approval already in place. They know they can do it. They've spoken to their broker before putting that offer. They go, yeah, you'll be fine. They'll go through. They've done their building and pest up front. And that's another whole thing that is really great to negotiate. We like to do building and pests up front because it gives us a negotiation tool. Often in Queensland, they are worth around $500 to $900. So people don't like sacking that up and paying it because
if they have to do it with multiple properties.
Yeah, and I get that too. But it depends on
it could actually save you $10,000. Yeah. Like if you end up doing that, say $500 for round figures, and you do that on 4 properties, it might cost you $2,000, but it might save you $10,000. So you actually keep $8,000 in your pocket due to negotiations based on that.
Yeah, but that's all perceived value in the head.
It is.
People need to get their head around.
And it's also long-term view, long-term thinking versus short-term thinking too. Whereas a lot of people are making those decisions based on fear of like, no, I need to hold on to my cash because it's $500 a pop. Well, what if you did broaden your horizons and look further down the timeline and understand that it could actually benefit you through negotiations?
And another thing too is if you get a building and pest and you decide not to go through with the deal, you can sell that building and pest to other potential buyers. You can tell the agent, look, I'll sell it to other people for $50 each. Mm-hmm. You might make money out of it. You never know. But multiple ways.
Thing? People do that?
Yeah, you can
cool.
Say, look, if anyone wants it, instead of paying $600 for another building and pest on their own, I'll give them mine for $50.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, that's a really key point. So the building and pest side, you don't obviously have to do it. If you don't want to, that's completely fine. I like to negotiate post. If you go something like building and pest and you got the contract price, I always try to negotiate if there's any required works to be done off that contract price based on the building and pest. However, agents know that you're committed at this stage, so it's very unlikely that if you go, Sam, I want $5,000 off the contract price, or I'm not going to do the deal. I'm going to be like, yeah, right, mate, go away then. You're already committed. You're already here. You're not going to lose this deal over $5,000. That just takes confidence from the seller and the agent to give that, and that confidence generally comes through having multiple backup offers as well.
Yeah.
So doing it up front definitely it fastens the process, and you don't know what state you're in. So New South Wales and Victoria are pretty strong for just wanting to have unconditional contracts in place, whereas Queensland's, WA, South Australia, they're all about the finance and building a pest.
So a fast process. I can understand why that's really good for negotiations. But do you want to share why?
You want to flip the script on the selling agent. So you want to create urgency on their end. So and through a fast process, there's a classic example that we use, which is, we're halfway down the line on another property. This has come up. We're really interested. It ticks all our boxes. However, we are under offer on another property. We're just completing that due diligence phase. We would love to put an offer on this place, but it just has to go through pretty fast. If it's a really reasonable offer and they don't have any other bites at that time, the agent, it's in their best interest to go, wow, this is a highly qualified buyer. If I don't get this sorted and I don't sell the seller on taking this deal, I'm going to lose this offer, and then I'll have to sit around and wait for another offer to come through, which may be 2 months' time. I might lose my exclusive listing after the 90-day period. And then, that's when that initial conversation of getting to know the person and liking that relationship you build with a sales agent, you want them to be your mate.
Yeah, and that comes back to what I call buying respect.
Yes, 100%.
Buying respect in knowing what you're doing, being unattached. This is how it is, mate. I know that you don't want to waste too much time on this. You just want to get it sold. I want to give you some money for it. If you want to make it happen, great. If you're asking too much, that's totally fine. We'll just go with this other deal that we've got because we've got non-attachment here.
Yeah, that's it. And I think there's a few nuggets of gold. There's plenty.
There's a lot.
Yeah, hopefully you got a bit out of it. But every single deal is completely different. So different, and the reason why I say that, it's a different property in a different market, and there's different emotions attached to it because there's always a different seller and a different selling agent. So just learn as much as you can and reach out to those that have done it before for further guidance if you need it.
So
but you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know exactly,
and you can't expect to know this stuff because you spend so much time in your own world doing what you do for a living and your family and then your hobbies. So
work with somebody who works their actual career around it, and they can really add some help and guidance. And look, getting somebody on your side with understanding the value of a property and negotiations can, it might cost you a little bit of money, maybe a bit more depending on who you're using. And, you can save tens of thousands of dollars by doing it. So it's silly not to.
Yeah, I'd say there's obviously there's people that aren't worth their weight. There's, as I always say, there's good, there's great, and there's shit. So finding the right people is a difficult part. But when you find them, they are worth every cent.
Scott, we'll have to hook you guys up with Scott.
Scott, he's done a few podcasts. Scott Agate, he's a good man.
We'll get him on.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Hit the subscribe button.
Yes. Follow us. Hopefully, we're providing some value. I think we are.
Oh yeah, it's some gold in here. So,
but tell me if we're not, please.
Yeah, and give us feedback. Hello@propertypals.au, and we'll catch you on the next one.